Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 737B, and today's date is August 8th, 2015, and the title of this episode is U.S. Congressmen Believe Assad Guilty Before UN Investigates. Now, before I get started, I just want to make an announcement. Tomorrow, Sunday, I'll be uploading an interview with Andy Hoffman. If you are on the X22Report.com alert system, you will get an email. If you signed up for X22 Report Spotlight channel on YouTube, YouTube should send you an email letting you know that video was uploaded. If not, you can come right over to YouTube, type in X22 Report Spotlight, and that should bring you right to the channel and video. If not, you can come to the X22Report.com site. You will see the video on the right-hand side. Let's get right into the economic collapse geopolitical news. Now, we all understand at this point in time that DHS is pushing all the states to comply with Real ID. And a lot of the states are pushing back. Some of them are saying they need more time. And if you don't know what the Real ID is your license right now is going to be replaced with a DHS Real ID. It will have all your information. They're going to be keeping it in a central database. It will be shared with Mexico, with Canada. It'll have your fingerprint, eventually an iris scan. There'll be an RFID chip. There'll be a barcode on the back just in case the RFID chip fails. And this is why I've been saying for the longest time, you need to make sure you protect yourselves, because these RFID chips, especially now in credit cards, in your driver's license, can be tracked. And who wants to be tracked? I like my privacy. I don't know about you, but I like being private. And this is why everyone should be thinking, okay, how can I stop this? Why do they need to track me wherever I go? Well, they don't. I mean, you can use a product like Block-It Pocket, and that's blockitpocket.com, where they have these sleeves. They're interwoven with silver, with tin and other metals. It's interwoven into a fabric. You can put your phone into it. It blocks the radiation. It stops your signal so they can't track you. You can put your license in there. You can put credit cards in there. So this way you actually have added security. When someone walks by with one of those scanners, they can't steal your information because the signal's blocked. With your license, they can't track you. And right now, Arizona needs more time. So they're giving them, instead of January, they're giving them till April to finish the work. And more states are coming on board. Now, we know the United States government, the central bankers, have been pushing to remove the rights from the people. And they do this with every piece of legislation that they push forth. And we see right now that the Senate Intelligence Authorization Act, this is Senate Resolution 1705, for the fiscal year of 2016, comprises free expression and privacy rights already gravely eroded. If enacted, Section 603 will require online companies to inform Washington of any actual knowledge of facts and circumstances related to unidentified terrorist activity, meaning warrantless searches and seizures of personal electronic content will be authorized, potentially subjecting countless numbers of innocent people to unjustified scrutiny. And of course, as we know, these bills have vague language, and it lists certain things in there. And it makes independent journalists, political, anti-war, and social justice activists, academics, students, doing legitimate research, as well as others vulnerable to being called suspected terrorists. The possibility could encourage self-censorship. Service providers may over-report to show compliance with the law. Online users could be flagged for using certain words or phrases. One definition of terrorist activity can be another's way of describing freedom fighting. Legitimate government criticism could be misinterpreted as and misused and reported. Anyone that opposes U.S. policies and talks out about it, this also might be taken into consideration as a, violent extremist or something like that. And you can see what they're doing. They're setting it up So they have huge companies who are gathering your information, the ISP providers, to forward this information, which completely violates your rights, right to the government. This is what they're doing right now, because they understand that this system is coming down. They understand it's collapsing. They understand they need to continually spy on the people, and they need help. They need help from the companies, and this is why they enacted the U.S. Freedom Act, to confuse everyone that they're not spying on the people. Well, they just have the companies doing it. And actually, they have an easier time because they have all your information. And this is why you need to protect yourself. Use Start Page, which masks your searches. Use other things like encryption or encrypted email services. There's no reason you need to hand over all your information. There's no reason you need to be tracked all the time. The Constitution, the Bill of Rights, gives you the ability to be private, and there is nothing wrong with that. It doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. It just means, listen, you don't have the right to see what I'm doing. I want my privacy. This is why our founding fathers came up with all these different rights. Now, out in Ukraine, Poroshenko has signed on Thursday a law on local elections. The only problem with this, the law does not provide for holding elections on October 25th in the districts of Donetsk and Lugansk, which are not controlled by Kiev, which he was supposed to do according to the Minsk II agreements. The OSCE right now is completely shocked and doesn't understand why Kiev is not following the Minsk II ceasefire agreement on the withdrawal of their weapons. Basically, all the talks they were having on the Minsk II, the two contact groups that came together, Ukraine would not budge on this stance. And they just won't do it. They're really not following the Minsk II agreement. They're delaying. And after a while, you start to wonder, why all this delay? Don't they want peace? No! The central bankers didn't get what they paid for. They paid for Ukraine. They want the southeastern area. They want Crimea. The OSCE is continually reporting on ceasefire violations. Right now, Kiev is firing on the Donetsk airport once again. And they're starting to notice something with the OSCE. Certain parts of the OSCE, about 500, who are monitoring the situation in eastern Ukraine, seem to be infiltrated by intelligence services, where they're not really reporting what is going on in the area. They're not really reporting on, yes, Kiev is continually shelling. They're violating the ceasefire. They're not reporting on any of this, and the people are starting to wonder, why aren't you? And then they start, as they look closer and closer, they're saying, we see why. Just like in protests, just like in everything else, they're infiltrated. We see the U.S. is going to share a military base in Poland. A former Polish military base may now be used to house American troops. Local authorities have received a letter announcing the property will be used for the needs by both Polish and U.S. armed forces with what's going on with Russia. So we can see military assets are continually being moved into position. Why? Because we know, they know, there is a war coming. We see something big is happening in Yemen. Saudi Arabia right now is basically bringing in a lot of reinforcements, a lot of vehicles, a lot of soldiers to support operations against the Houthi rebels. They're bringing in dozens of tanks, armored vehicles, and it looks like they're going to be pushing a major offensive coming soon. The buildup is massive. We know in the Middle East right now, the U.S. is getting ready to mount a major offensive in Syria. And what's very interesting about this, and I discussed this before, the Islamic State basically has grown since the airstrikes. And think about it. The U.S. and the coalition forces have struck the Islamic State 6,000 times. And their territory grows and nothing happens. Why is this? Well, we understand why. Because the Islamic State is the proxy army of the United States. That's why. That's the reason. Now, the State Department came out and basically they're blaming Assad for the chaos and the rise of jihadists in Syria. It is all his fault. Actually, they said the Assad regime, frankly, is the root of all evil here and has been instrumental in creating the kind of lawless area to the north where the Islamic State can just run free. So, you can see at this point in time, they're using the propaganda to convince everyone he is the evil dictator that tortures people. This is what they're trying to convince everyone of. So this way they can go right in and remove him. And we can see there are more classes graduating who've been trained to fight Assad. 2 more classes in training. And they're going to let them out and go right from Turkey, right into Syria to join the fight. And we see something very interesting happening right now. We hear in the corporate media the U.S. is working closely, consulting Russia on its future policy war for Syria. And Obama was even out there saying that Putin might give up Assad. Now, we have to think, why is this? Why is this happening? And why are they saying this? Because it started out with Erdogan, who said, yes, Putin is going to give up Assad. And now we have Obama saying it. Well, we understand U.S. officials sat down with the Russian counterparts, and we know that Russia is ready to bring in the airborne troops to help Syria fight against the Islamic State. This is what Putin is continually telling the U.S. that he's going to do. So what are they negotiating at this point? Well, what they're negotiating is Ukraine and Syria. They're trying to make a deal where Assad will be given up, and this will be in exchange for concessions on Ukraine. So they're working with Putin, trying to convince him, listen, give up Assad. We'll kind of let you have Ukraine right here because we rather have Syria. This is what they're doing at this point. But I don't think these talks are going well because Russia is continually out there saying that they're not going to give up Assad. And we're seeing right now that they keep on coming back saying, listen, we will help you fight the Islamic State. But interestingly, out of all this, Saudi Arabia is coming out. And they're trying to convince Assad to resolve the crisis in his country. Saudi Arabia said they will stop supporting rebels trying to overthrow Assad. So they'll stop supporting the Islamic State, the Free Syrian Army. And what do they want in return? Well, they want all the Shiite forces pulled out of Syria. Because they said this will help prepare the ground for presidential and parliamentary elections in Syria. Well, this way they get rid of them, and basically they have a Sunni base, and they don't have to worry about elections because they already have a president picked out. And it's not Assad. It's with the opposition forces. So they're really maneuvering and getting ready to do this. This is what they've been pushing for. But we all know the Islamic State is the proxy army. And just from the statement from Saudi Arabia, we know. But there was a partially declassified report showing the U.S. has and still is supporting the Islamic State. An internal Defense Intelligence Agency document produced recently shows the U.S. knew that Turkey, the other regions were creating the Islamic State to create an Islamic caliphate. And they supported it. They knew about it. They know a lot of the Free Syrian Army is defecting right over to the Islamic State. And we know that the US, UK, and the coalition forces have been dropping weapons to support the Islamic State. I mean, the air base that they're using now in Turkey was actually used to drop the supplies for the Islamic State. So we're seeing here a complete buildup. They're getting ready to go after Assad. They're trying to convince Putin right now to let Assad go so they can go in full force. And if he doesn't, they're still going in full force. Now, of course, Putin's going to try to tamp this down. He's going to try to make a deal and hopefully push peace so there is no war. Because you have to remember, do you really think Putin is going to give up Assad after he made all these economic deals? That Putin, he doesn't want to give up the port in Tartus. So they're going to continually try to work with Putin right now. And if he doesn't agree, they're going in anyhow. And we know at this time they're using the propaganda that Assad used sarin gas and chlorine gas. And of course we have the doctor with the photos showing all the people, and we know the photos don't link to anything. They're just showing the aftermath. And it means absolutely nothing unless you show a link and proof that this person or this government did it. And of course they don't have that. That's the problem that they have. So they have to show the aftermath to try to convince you, because you make the link in your minds. But there really is no evidence. And that's what they never show. But the congressman, there's one congressman, and there's most likely others who believe this, that Assad is already guilty. They don't care about any proof or evidence. He is guilty, and they don't care what the UN investigation turns up. Makes no difference. He used the chlorine bombs. He's a dictator. He needs to be removed. That's all they care about. And we see at this point in time, no one is truly looking at real evidence. It's all propaganda. And I've said this before. It's like you're on a murder trial, and the evidence is, here's the picture of the dead body, and they point to the person. That's the person who did it. Well, where's the evidence linking it? You see a dead body and someone sitting there. What did he use? How did he do it? What else do you have? Oh, nothing. But we have the dead body. So that proves he did it. Well, it's the same thing with Assad. Here's the sick women and children. Assad must have done it. Well, we have evidence that the Islamic State actually has chlorine gas. Actually, we have evidence that the Islamic State used chlorine gas. So isn't there a reasonable doubt right there? But it doesn't matter. Now we see already, as we've seen many, many times before, as soon as they come out and they say, this cyber attack was caused by this country, we know they're using this to convince you of this is the country we're going to be going after. And we know it's been North Korea with Sony. We know lately it's been China. And now here we are again. They're saying Russia hacked the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and they shut down the email system of 4,000 Pentagon employees. It was definitely Russia. We know for sure. And an advanced actor, and I've been saying this over and over, they will bounce this off of different servers. It is very difficult to track where it originated from. But of course, they don't care about proving anything. They don't care about evidence. And when I say they, I'm talking about the U.S. government central bankers. They just want you to have it in your mind. These are the countries and groups we'll be going to war with. That's it. And of course, CNN and all the corporate media, they're out there right now scaring and using fear-mongering on the people. We see Turkey is out there saying the Islamic State, which they created and support, are in their countries with sleeper cells ready to go at any moment. U.S. intelligence community warned that the Islamic State might be working to build the capability to carry out mass casualty attacks, lone wolf attacks in the United States. So they're building this up slowly to convince you of the group of who's going to be responsible for these attacks. And we know right now that this has been planned for quite a while. We know the operatives are standing by waiting for the green light to go. And we know that they're going to be blaming Russia, China, North Korea for the cyber attacks. I mean, that's pretty much well established right now because that's what they've been throwing at us. And they're going to use the Islamic State for the physical attacks. And of course, we know it's not the physical. We know it's not the Islamic State. We know these are the inside government agencies preparing all of this to convince us of this because they have to do it this way. And it's called a false flag, where they pretend that it's this group, but it's really them doing it to make you do things you normally wouldn't do. So if they make you believe it's the Islamic State, they can say, okay, we have to go to war. See, normally you wouldn't want to go to war, but this will get you angry enough to go to war, and this is what they're trying to do. So at this point in time, we see they're going to use the lone wolf physical attacks, most likely maybe a dirty bomb. We know Israel has been testing that dirty bomb in the desert. We know uranium was trying to be smuggled in Ukraine to certain buyers. And we understand the operatives, lone wolf groups that are made up of many different little groups around the country are on standby. And of course, these are the operatives getting ready for the green light. So we'll see physical attacks. Once the physical attacks are occurring and there's mass confusion, guess what? It makes the perfect opportunity to have a cyber attack. And remember, a cyber attack, they don't have to prove. They just have to say it's happening. How do you know? You don't. And then they just have to say it was Russia or China because they've been telling you this all along. And they say, oh, they hit the financial institutions. They brought them down. And we can see at this point in time, we know why they're all doing this. Because the economy at this point is completely collapsing. And it's accelerating. Many financial experts are out there even telling us this, that yeah, things don't look, we're looking at the economic indicators. We can see it firsthand. The stock market is now shaky like we saw back in 2007, 2008. All the signs are here. Get prepared. Listen, everyone. Thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and be prepared. Thanks a lot.